Hey, Alongsiders, welcome to the online gathering. Let's worship, sing We Are Your People. We are your people, the story of grace, saved by the miracle God. Lifting our hands to the King of creation. You are the wonder of love. Yeah, you are the one who we love. We exalt you. We exalt you. Holy, holy is the Lord. We exalt you, Lord. We exalt you. Holy, holy, yes, holy is the Lord. We are your children, yeah, we are your children, high up on your shoulders, held by the greatness of God. We see your glory, the beauty of heaven. You are the wonder of love. Yes, you are the one who we love, Lord. We exalt you. We exalt you. Holy, holy is the Lord. Yeah, we exalt you, Lord. We exalt you. Holy, holy is the Lord. We will lift you high. We will lift you high. We will lift you high. All of heaven Christ, Jesus lifted high. We will lift you high, Lord. We will lift you high. All of heaven Christ, Jesus lifted high. Jesus lifted high. Jesus lifted high. We lift you high, Lord. We exalt you. We exalt you. Holy, holy is the Lord. Yeah, we exalt you, Jesus. We exalt you, Lord. Holy, holy is the Lord. Holy, 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 holy is the Lord. Yes, you are. Holy, holy is the Lord. Yes, holy is the Lord. I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. And all my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up till I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. Let's sing that again. I love you, Lord. I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good, Lord. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire. In darkest night, you are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good, Lord. With every breath that I am able, and I will sing of the goodness of God. Yes, Lord, we will. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, surrendered now, I give you everything, Lord, yeah. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. All my life you have been faithful, Lord. All my life you have been so, so good, yes. With every breath that I am able, and I will sing of the goodness of God, and I will sing the goodness of God. Yes, I will say of the goodness of God. Your goodness, Lord, your faithfulness, Father, never far.
Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. Sing that again. Here's my heart. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true, 'cause I am found, I am yours, I am loved, I'm made pure, I have life, I can breathe, I am healed, I am free. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true, 'cause I'm found, 'cause I am found. I am yours. I am loved. I'm made pure. I have life. I can breathe. I am healed. I am free. 'Cause you are strong. You are sure. You are life. You endure. You are good. Always true. You are light. Breaking through. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. Here's my life. Here's my life, Lord. Here's my life, Lord. Here's my life, Lord. Speak what is true.
Speak what is true.
Speak what is true.
Speak what is true, Lord, over us.
Speak what is true. 'Cause I am found. I am yours. I am loved. I'm made pure. I have life. I can breathe. I am healed. I am free. 'Cause you are strong. You are sure. You are life. You endure. You are good. Always true. You are light. Breaking through. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. Speak what is true. Happy Valentine's Day! Hey, Alongsiders, this is Camilla, and I want to remind you about a couple things. Ash Wednesday is this Wednesday, and we have a gathering that we will be sending you to your email. So if we don't have updated information for you, you can text info, I-N-F-O, to 855-909-1199, and you can get that Ash Wednesday gathering.
Brandon here. Starting this spring, small groups will be back. So there will be 5 different groups for you to choose from, and you can check out our website or the app to find more information and get signed up for whatever group looks interesting to you. And some other exciting news, as a lover of podcasts, we are starting a podcast, and it will be for the Lectio Divina Journal. During the Lenten season, it'll be a weekday, Every weekday there'll be a reading of the Lectio scriptures and reflection time, and just a good opportunity for you to just spend some time via a podcast. So look for more information on that and look in your feeds and on your wherever you get a podcast.
Also, you have heard this a few times now, but the reason is because we're excited. March 7th, we are meeting back in person in this building. So we are following all the guidelines. We're watching everything, but we need you to watch for that registration when it pops up and just be ready to gather together again. We're looking forward to it.
And some more important news. Umius Food Pantry needs you. We are in need of volunteers. We have consistently and constantly been down serving our neighborhood, our neighbors through this pandemic time and all the things. We're actually coming up on 10 years of service as Umius Food Pantry to our city. So, but we need some more volunteers to help continue what we do. And that is, we follow all the guidelines and things like that. So please, if that's interesting to you at all, email me, josh@alongsiderschurch.org. I'd love to get you some information. Like I said, we do follow all the guidelines for those of you who are concerned about safety. The guests who do come, we bring we basically have all the shopping down below our space, and we fill bags. They put in an order of groceries, we fill the bags downstairs, and then we deliver them to the guests up on the sidewalk. So that's kind of the things that we do with that. We'd love to have some more hands and some help serving and loving on our city that way. Also, gardening is coming around the corner. March 13th, put it on your calendars, 9 to noon, right around in there. It'll start at 9, ending is it just depends on the day, how it goes. But we are doing a garden work day, and see the plants, the starts are in the greenhouse already, so those should be ready for going in the soil by then. We have some construction-y projects like that, so anybody who's tool savvy would be great to have some help like that in that way. But would love anybody who wants to get their hands dirty that day, March 13th. Be great to have you. Lastly, giving, sharing. That's part of community and life together. And thank you for those of you who give and share consistently. Let's continue on together as we love our city, as we sow into what God is doing through this community among us and abroad, and in all the different ways. Let's serve together, let's give together, share together, and blessings on you as you do so.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's reflection. As you probably all know, for those that are watching here, we have been in a series called Whispers of a Different Way, which really just invites us to take a look at the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew's Gospel, chapters 5 through chapter 7. But it's really the summons from the Mount more than just a sermon. It's a summons, an invitation to a life that maybe will look different. Well, actually, it should look different for all of us to actually lean into these words of Jesus. Now, we are entering, as I said last week, we are entering into 6 sections of the Sermons on the Mount, or the Sermon on the Mount. And each of these sections give us a contrasting statement of Jesus. And what I mean by that is you'll notice in these next 6 sections over the next few weeks that Jesus will say this: "You have heard it said, but I say," or "I tell you." So these contrasts Jesus gives us are really contrasting the Torah, or the ancient statement, and then Jesus gives us an explanation of the true intent and then a practical application. And so we are in Matthew chapter 6, verses 21 through 26. And I'm just going to read it to you. If you do have a Bible with you and want to open it up, go ahead and do so. But this is what it says. Jesus says, "You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, 'You shall not murder.' and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, is answerable to court, and anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. Therefore, if you're offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. Jesus takes a command from the Jewish tradition and without overturning it shows the true intent of it and practical reality of the commandment. Now, while driving home, obviously his point and urgency. Now here in this context, Jesus is not abolishing the law against murder, but bringing it out its fullest and its truest sense. Now last week I talked about good anger, and this week I'm going to talk about the not so good anger. Now, Jesus is speaking both to anger and contempt, with the word raka, and the harm of the tongue, as well as the work of reconciliation or making things right that needs to be done. And remember, contempt seeks to diminish the inherent value or worth of another person, and having or holding contempt towards someone dismisses and degrades the image of God in them or their human worth. Anger, contempt, the work of reconciliation, remember, all starts inside of us. And Jesus is focusing on the heart and the inner life of his listeners. And as the wisdom proverb says, guard your heart, for it truly is the center or the wellspring of your life. Now, twice in verse 22, Jesus speaks to the collective. He uses brothers and sisters. Anyone who is angry with a brother or sister. Anyone who says to a brother or sister. And I want to take that and I want to move us over to the letter to the Ephesian church in Ephesians chapter 4 and verses 25 through 27. This here is Paul's letter to the ancient church of Ephesus. And in this part of the letter, he is directing them toward what it means to be Christ-like in their living. And he says to them, so then, putting away falsehood, let all of us speak the truth to our neighbors, for we are members of one another. Be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and so not make room for the devil. Now, putting away, when he says putting away, it really means taking off or laying aside. So basically stop lying to your neighbor. And the word neighbor here actually means anybody that lives in proximity to you, anybody that's near you. So that could be inside your house, obviously outside your house. So put off anything that is false, anything that is causing you to lie. And he says, let all of us collectively speak truth. And Paul says later in a different place within the scripture, hey, speak truth in love. So that is the invitation here. For we are members of one another. There is a deep connection, be it the image of God in us, the place where we live, or the spiritual body that we're a part of. We are connected. And then he goes and he offers us this: be angry, do not sin, do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not make room for the devil. These are 4 commands in in plural forms, which is to say that what he's doing is he's speaking to the entire community. He's addressing them as the one another's or the collective. And he gives us, as I said, those 4 commands. And I want to quickly break those down with you. Be angry, he says. Be angry. Now, this kind of feels like an invitation to anger. Again, anger is a natural reaction to any offense. When we are confronted with evil, or when we experience injustice, or we witness injustice, or merely learn what others may be facing or overcoming, our insides can get twisted, our heart rates can go up, and we can have a bodily response to something that we see that we know is unjust, or something that we ourselves have experienced that has been an unjust act towards us. Now, 10 years ago, in the early 2000s, I led an initiative, for 10 years in the early 2000s, I should say. I led an initiative called One Voice to End Slavery, and it was combating human trafficking in all of its forms through the efforts of awareness and education. We would host events on college and university campuses, hoping to interrupt as well as to educate. I remember I created an experiment called the 1800 second experiment, where people voluntarily would enter into a box truck, and I would close the door on them so they'd be sitting in the dark, and then they would be watching from inside the box truck a short film called The Fields of Mudan. And that is such a short film, but a powerful film. The whole experience was really meant to awaken the senses of the people, interrupt their norms of living, stir within them a righteous anger for what they're watching, and hopefully mobilize them to act accordingly. Literally, I was inviting them to be angry over this form of evil, which is a global reality for not only laborers, but for also women, as well as boys, girls, women, men that are forced into any form of sex trafficking. And I just wanted people just to feel what others were going through. In some way, just create an opportunity of solidarity to feel something. And when we would lift open this box truck door and let people out after they sat there in the dark for a while after watching the film, man, people came out angry. People came out with tears. The testimonies and the stories of what people felt inside that box truck as they watched this film of a young girl, and the first opening scene is her being driven around in a box truck. It was really, 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 I think, both helpful for people to understand the reality of so many in the world today, and to somehow interrupt them and let them feel the anger of this injustice. So Paul is saying, be angry, but be angry over the right things. And then he says, do not sin. Jesus is not the way of retaliation, even in the face of injustice. I know that sounds crazy, but retaliation may sometimes rage in our day and age from a snarky or a dismissive or demeaning comment in social media, or inflicting pain onto a guilty party. In your anger, do no harm. Don't miss the mark. Do not sin. The Apostle Peter actually writes in 1 Peter chapter 2, this verse here, if you can see it. When Jesus was abused, he did not return abuse. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but he entrusted himself to the one who judges justly. Be angry, but do not sin. Then Paul goes on, do not let the sun go down on your anger. We have to address the cause, or the causes, of our anger. And I know this makes everybody so excited, because I know that's what you love to do when you get angry, beginning to look at it and try to understand where it comes from. But angry people need to address the cause of their anger, or the causes of their anger. Taking action toward the source of the anger, not the anger itself. And that's really important, to begin to take action toward the source of the anger, not the anger itself. If we can get to the source of the anger, we're able to accept the grace to help us master it. Now, interestingly enough, the word angry in this scripture, where Jesus gives, be angry, do not sin, and do not let the sun go down on your anger. That second word, anger, and do not let your sun go down on your anger, is a different Greek word from the word anger in be angry. The The second word angry here is the Greek word paragismos. And it's not a typical word used for anger in the New Testament. In fact, paragismos appears only here in the entire New Testament. And so paragismos typically refers to an action that provokes anger, an action that provokes anger. So when your anger is misguided, or when your anger is missing the mark or creating pain or harm for another, what is the source? Why are you being provoked? Whose action is provoking you? What action outside of you, what person or what is provoking you to anger? And we have to pay attention. So do not let the sun go down on your anger. And what it means is do not let the sun go down on what provokes your anger. You have to pay attention to what is provoking you. You have to address the sources of the anger itself, taking action toward the source of the anger and not the anger itself. Now, I'm going to give you just my suggestions as it relates to how we can actually do that. And I'm going to give you these 4 words here: pause, pulse, present, and perspective. When you're in a moment where you're being provoked in anger, provoked to anger, and you're feeling it surface within you, you're feeling your heart pulse is spiking, everything, you know what's going on. It's if possible, pause. Literally give yourself a timeout. Give yourself a timeout. Pause. Because you know if you run with it, it might get ugly, disruptive. You might not be able to manage what comes out of your mouth. It's good to pause. It might be hard, but you got to pause. And then you've got to check your pulse. Literally, I know it sounds crazy, but this is actually a gift from the Gottman Marriage Institute. When there is conflict in marriages and relationships, you got to check your pulse. Is your body flushing? Do you feel the anger resonating with you? And is your pulse escalating? At that point, you got to breathe. So you got to pause and you've got to pulse. You've got to breathe. You got to check yourself. You got to check your body. You've got to pull back and you've got to breathe. And then be present. Don't run off with the anger. Slow and stay present in that moment. It's like this. If your house is on fire, you don't run after the person who has set the fire. No, you go work to put out the flames. You got to do the same thing. So you got to stay present. You got to pause. You got to pulse, meaning you got to breathe. You've got to be present. Don't run off with the anger. You got to slow yourself down to stay present in this moment. And you got to have perspective. Perspective is so key. If you're able to pause, pulse, and be present, this will help you breathe and hopefully gain some perspective and maybe even some distance from that moment that wants to drag you down whatever hole into the pit of anger and whatever comes out after that. Now, if we have the chance to do this, if you can pause, if you can pulse or breathe, if you can be present and gain perspective, this is what might begin to happen. You will then have the chance to acknowledge what you're feeling, because that's so important. You don't want to dismiss it. In actuality, you want to embrace it. You want to embrace what you're feeling. You want to embrace why you are angry and what you're sensing in this moment. And then as you're acknowledging it and embracing it, and in one sense, that's you controlling it, that allows you to see is that you can begin to see and then follow and find the roots or the source of where this is all coming from, right? Because, anger is a natural inclination to when we see things that are unjust. But when it's an unhealthy anger, we've got to take a moment to acknowledge, I am angry right now. I've got to embrace the fact that I'm angry. I've got to sit with this moment. But then I've got to just do some digging. I've got to see and I've got to follow and I've got to find where the sources are of this anger. How did I get here? and really do the work in this moment. Sometimes you need to ask yourself, am I just tired? Am I not getting enough rest? Are my spiritual practices not present in my life? Or are you like running the replays of some previous offense to stoke your emotions? Because I know none of you do that, right? None of you go ahead and replay offenses when you see somebody or you know you're about to see them. You don't set yourself up mentally in that way. Of course you do, because you're too much of a saint. Well, I'm both a saint and sinner, and so I know what it feels like to somehow recircle back around to moments and replay them. And that only, once again, drives my body to flush and feel anger towards somebody that could actually do harm or to hurt or to feel contempt and be dismissive. So we've got to dig, you've got to ask, you've got to find the roots, you've got to follow the thread, is what we call it around here a lot. Pull on that thread and find out, why in this moment do I feel this way? I got to pause. I got to breathe. I've got to be present. I've got to get some perspective. And then I've got to acknowledge it. I've got to embrace it. And if possible, begin to see and follow and find the source of all in this, of why I'm angry in this moment. Now, I know and realize this might not come naturally to us, but it takes work and practice, but it's like changing any ingrained habit in our life. You got to do the work. You got to do the work. It's really important that you do the work. If you want, if you desire change, if you want behavior change, or you got to do the inner work. You've got to face yourself. And I know that is sometimes difficult and probably risky, but it's so important. For my birthday, I bought some new Doc Martens, and I don't know if everybody in the room or wherever you're watching, in your room, wherever you're watching, if you know what Doc Martens are, but they're just these classic boots that have been around for a long time, just leather, and you have to break them in. So I have an old pair that are worn, and I love them. They're so comfortable now, and I got a new pair. They're stiff, and I got to break them in. And maybe you've experienced that before, where you got a pair of shoes that you love so much, and then you get another pair, and you got to break them in. But for all of us, we have created well-worn pathways in the brain. And when you walk a neural pathway over and over again, in time it becomes a habit. Even unconsciously or consciously, you just do the same thing that you've actually carved out in your brain to do. Now, some of us, staying with unhealthy anger or rage or contempt for others is because of our well-worn pathways created over many years and many moments. And so to pause and to breathe or pulse, to be present and gain perspective, to acknowledge, to embrace, to see, follow, and find, that allows us to create new neural pathways, which may eventually lead to different habits, different responses to when things come at us or when somebody comes at us, that we begin to reteach ourselves. God's given us this gift in our own body to reteach ourselves, to say, I don't have to go there any longer. I don't have to respond in that way. I don't have to react in that way. I don't have to just come at somebody. I can pull back. I can breathe. I can stay present in this moment. I can gain some perspective. I can acknowledge, that I'm angry right now. I can embrace the fact that, I am ticked off, but then I can begin to see and follow and find what is happening in me and why is it happening. And then you can make a healthy decision on how to then act in that moment. In the way that I have to break in my Doc Martens, some of you need to break in some new pathways in your brain. Paul says it's called renewing your mind. You got to do the work. You got to do the work. And God has given you an able body to do that work. It's just that you have to choose in the moments that you will experience to pause, to pulse or breathe, right? To be present, to gain some perspective, to acknowledge it, to embrace it, and then to see and follow and find. And in that moment, hopefully create new pathways and change that you can be living in a much more healthier space. So as you guys know, we like to enter into a time of engagement each and every Sunday and invite you to do so. So I'm going to invite you to do so. And this is what I'm going to invite you. These are a couple of prompts. Connect with your previous moment of anger. Was it today? Because it might have been already today. Whatever your today is, or was it somehow this past week or the week that you're living in? And give thought to the source of anger, not to the anger itself, but give thought to the source of the anger. Go find and seek and follow, pull that thread. What can you learn about you? Or what are you learning about you? All right, so enjoy this moment by yourself or with people in the room. Give yourself 3 minutes, do the work. All right, go ahead. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Hope your engagement time was helpful for you, and it was good for those in the room if you were able to process that. I'm just going to end here with just a few thoughts for us. Remember, the end of that passage, Paul's writings to the church of Ephesus in Ephesians chapter 4, 25 through 27. The last thought is, remember he said, be angry, do not sin, do not let the sun go down in your anger, and do not make room for the devil. Listen, non-action, right? Anger without appropriate outlet or unresolved anger when you're not digging down and you're not figuring out the source of it and you're not doing the work, that all creates room literally for disunity and for hurt. And there's nothing better, it seems, that the evil one, the accuser of our soul, celebrates those moments when there's a disunity. And remember, Paul is writing, Jesus is writing to the collective us. And so we together have to be mindful that we are doing the work so that we don't make room for disunity or destruction or harm. That means each of us individually have to take responsibility for ourselves, right? To do all the things that I told you to do or invite you or suggest that you could do before you went into your engagement. We got to take those things seriously because it does create disharmony and disunity. We don't want to give the keys over, if you will. We don't want to give those places in our life. We want to make sure that we are doing the work and that we're mindful and present to the work that needs to be done. And in the scripture, remember in this passage within Matthew, Jesus says that we have to reconcile that, hey, if you've got something happening in you that you've allowed to linger for some time and you come to that place of worship and to the altar and you remember that you've got an issue, sometimes it's best to leave that moment of worship and actually go reconcile or try to reconcile with your brother or your sister. And we realize that reconciliation doesn't always happen, but we still got to try, if possible, to make sure that there is unity and harmony and forgiveness and some sort of healing of any splintering that happens in the collective us. And this really bears witness, right? Reconciliation is, as Paul says, is a ministry that each of us carry. It is a responsibility for each of us to carry. And so we've got to try to put our best foot forward to make sure that we can bring healing where it is necessary, right? And so Jesus says, reconcile, go to your brother and sister and work it through if you can. And when I read that in that passage in Matthew 5, it seems that what if our worship of God is somehow connected to how we treat one another, how we care for one another? And is it possible that anything that shuts out our brothers and sisters shuts out God? This idea that our worship and our inner life and our relationships are actually intertwined, and we have to be responsible and responsive if we know there's an opportunity for us to take care of an issue that we haven't taken care of, and it's created problems or harm or fractures in relationship, that we go out and try to do what we can do. Leave that moment of worship and move into another form of worship, which really is reconciling and making sure that there's wholeness within relationships, especially collectively as we move forward. And then lastly, in that same passage, Jesus says, settle matters quickly with your adversaries. And this is not going to be easy, but just don't let things or issues linger longer than they need to. When we do, have you noticed that when we let things linger, they seem to get bigger? Anybody realize that when things they just get bigger? It's like the story becomes bigger and bigger, and then it's like the truth of the story is not even true anymore. It's like the original issue is now magnified and somehow more is added to what it was. So settle the matters quickly. If you have the opportunity, do so. Settle the matters. Call the person, right? Set up a time, Zoom them, whatever you got to do, or get a face-to-face and just have an opportunity to settle the matters that you need to settle. And I'm pretty sure, listen, I am certain that if you're watching today, there is probably a name that can pop up, a face that can pop up, that maybe you're thinking, maybe I need to leave this at the altar. Maybe I need to step away from the altar of worship and go deal relationally. I've got to reconcile, or I've got to settle this matter quickly because I know it's just not healthy for me, and it's probably not healthy for them, and it probably affects other people. So do what Jesus invites you to do. And then lastly, I just got to end here. Love, right? In the 1 Corinthians 13 passage, right? The chapter on love, Paul writes in there, he says, love is not easily angered. Love is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love is not easily angered, right? So if we're persistent in our love, if we're welcoming the gaze of God's love every day into our being, that it's transforming us and causing there to be us to mature and grow and become whole, then what maybe would be coming out of us is a persistent or a consistent love. Love is not easily angered. and it keeps no record of wrongs. And I cannot drill down on this part enough. Listen, if you are angry and you've been angry for some time, you have probably created a Rolodex of all the wrongs, right? And the names in that Rolodex of all the wrongs that they've done, and you've never stopped thumbing through, right? That's just so not healthy, right? It's so not healthy. And so here's an opportunity to stop thumbing through the Rolodex and deal with whatever anger you need to deal with. And love is your companion. Love is the gift that allows you to be bold enough or brave enough or have the courage and the confidence to deal with whatever that may be. So there will be no like Rolodex in the brain that we thumb through. There will be no way that when we see somebody, that we would feel this overwhelming sense of offense, but we would begin to allow God to just care for us in real healing and transformative ways. Jesus says in here that our heart matters. It's all about what happens inside. The change starts inside. The change starts in our hearts. Welcome that this week. Welcome the change. Ask God to companion you. Ask God to show you where you're stuck. Ask God to begin to create opportunities that you could reconcile or settle matters. But ultimately, live in love. Live in love. We're going to move to the Eucharist as we do each and every week. Take all of what maybe you have heard today into that moment, breaking bread, drinking the cup, being reminded of love poured out for you, and in turn that you would give your life in the same way in whatever small and great ways this week. I love you. Hopefully the words of Jesus are illuminative and enlightening and helpful for you and maybe challenging as well. Enjoy the song, enjoy breaking bread and drinking with each other. Bless you guys, and we'll see you very soon.
Pull me in closer. Pull me in closer. Close to your heart. May I be a pure reflection of all you are. Love that is patient. Love that is kind. A love that keeps no offenses or wrongs in mind. Make me like Jesus. Make me like Jesus. Yes. My heart's an open space. My heart is an open space for you to come and have your way. I'm open, Lord. My heart is an open space for you to come and have your way. I'm open, Lord. Yeah. I'm open to you, Lord Jesus. You're faithful to find me. You're faithful to find me right where I am. And even in my wandering, you call me friend. Mercy receives me, lifts me to my feet, and I'm caught up in the wonder and mystery of knowing Jesus, of knowing Jesus, yes. My heart's an open space. My heart is an open space for you to come and have your way. I'm open, Lord. My heart is an open open space for you to come and have your way. I'm open, Lord. Yes, I'm open to you, Lord. Sing, do whatever you want to do. Do whatever you want to do. Say whatever you want to say to me, Jesus. Move however you want to move. Change whatever you want to change. Do whatever you want to do, Lord. Say whatever you want to say. Move however you want to move. Change whatever you want to change. My heart's an open space. My heart is an open space for you to come and have your way. I'm open to you, Jesus. My heart is an open space for you to come and have your way. I'm open, Lord.
you.